morning, Bravo bosses, and welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously with me, your host, Dana. Today we have a very special guest. Today's guest specializes in Jewish genetic genealogy and has been featured in the Daily Mail, Perez Hilton, and Heavy.com. Welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously, Dr. Adina Newman.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
It's so great to have you. I've been following you for a while. You are sort of like the queen of reality TV genealogy, which I didn't know was a thing. So tell us a little bit about your background. Or maybe you made it up, but that's great too. But tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, how you got into genealogy.
Yeah, so I actually did kind of make it up, and I can talk about why
I
that
love that.
happened. So I started really getting into genealogy about, I have to remember what year it is. So
Right.
probably about a decade ago,
Hmm.
which is, most people think of genealogy as a retired person's, activity. But, kind of my background, I grew up as an only child, and both my parents have siblings that are much older than them. So my grandparents were well into their 70s, like when I was born. One of them wasn't even alive anymore. I'm named after him. So I kind of grew up in a world of nostalgia. So remember when such and such did this and this. So like it was always like that.
Right.
So I got into it. My background, I have a doctorate in educational leadership. So I'm a teacher. I
Oh, okay.
taught, I've done curriculum design, all that good stuff. So basically, when I started to have kids, so my oldest is 10 now,
Hmm.
so you can do the math. I really, really got into genealogy and just started poking around and trying to fill in holes in the stories with my family. And then I think it was my 31st birthday. So about 7 years ago, my dad got me a DNA test and it unlocked this whole world for me. We had a lot of secrets in the family, and I started helping other people with their secrets, and it just kind of blossomed. And I found that I really had a knack for it, and it
Hmm.
became a career. So part of what I wanted to do was when I started the Instagram account, and I started a long time ago. I even know I don't know if I had my oldest daughter yet. So like 8 years, 7 years, something like
And it's
that.
called My Family Genie, right? Just for
My Family
anybody. That's
Genie,
right.
yes. So I started first kind of advertising my services, and I had some of those like really lame, bland statements like learn your family history with stock photos online. And like, I didn't know what I was doing and I got no engagement.
Like an
But the
Alibaba
core,
stock photo?
hmm?
Like an Alibaba stock photo?
Yeah, something like that. Very similar.
Go on.
Probably same price, right? So basically, I had always been watching reality TV, and I feel like, I grew up, I was watching Southern Charm, and I had my son on my lap, and like my son is very similar in age to Catherine's daughter, and like I felt like we grew up together there. So I was like, you know what? It would be really interesting if there was some sort of, deep dive into these reality stars, like finding your roots, kind of, who do you think you are? What if I started doing that? So I decided to do Craig Conover because
Oh, okay.
that was my first choice. I said, you know what? All these people on Southern Charm, they have all this history and everything.
Right.
You do Craig. And so I did it and I started digging into him. And people say, what do you use? I use things like ancestry.com, and I look at newspapers and all this stuff. And I wrote a blog post about it and I posted, and people were really, really into it, including Craig. And Craig, at the time said, this is one of the best things that's happened from this show for me. And it was really, I'm so happy I started with Craig because I don't know if I would have kept doing it because just the reaction to what I was doing was so amazing.
Hmm.
And he still tells me, like, I show it to my family every Christmas. And, he loves asking about it.
Yeah.
So I got into that. And then I think I did Vicky Gunvalson at one point, and I posted a yearbook photo of her.
Hmm.
And it was the yearbook photo that went wild, like viral, wild
Yeah.
kind of people. And I was like, oh, people like yearbook photos. So I started digging in. So that's why you see all those yearbook photos, because people love them and they are interesting. So, I just kind of started to do that because my whole mission in doing this was to get people, millennials mostly, into genealogy, because most of the conferences I go to, I'm among the youngest there. The average age is, more 70s, that kind of thing. And I want younger people to get into it because, as you can see, younger people are really into genealogy. They just don't know it.
Right, because it can
And
be
I
fun.
think, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I was, some magazines have genealogy of the week now, things like
Right.
that. So it's just been really kind of it's my mission to just get people interested in it. And I know I have because I get messages all the time, what DNA test should I take? I'm stuck here. Where do I find this record? People who wouldn't normally think to look. So,
Right.
mission accomplished, right?
So you mentioned ancestry.com and
Mhm.
yearbooks and stuff. I guess kind of walk me through what your process would sort of look like if you're trying to deep dive into someone, right? I guess it's a bunch of
Yeah.
different things, but I guess I'm curious about the totality and the research that goes into it.
Yeah, so it's a really good question because I think, people don't totally understand. So because I'm a genetic genealogist, which means I work with, doesn't mean I know anything about genetics. It means I know how to use those DNA tests that you take and figure out how to find people.
Hmm.
I'm very good at finding living people also. So genealogy tends to be, traditionally you're looking for people who have passed away. So
Right.
I'm good at finding living people. What do? I will comb social media. I will find articles in newspapers. I mean, Facebook. You'd be surprised how many of those reality stars don't shut down their social media, and you find out a lot of information. I'm not going to name any, but there's quite a few.
Yeah.
I find obituaries like legacy.com, for example, and that those tend to be a treasure trove of information. So it
Hmm.
kind of depends, but there's a lot that people don't realize that they leave a digital footprint. So when
Hmm.
people panic about DNA testing, oh, this company has my DNA, they're going to find me. You have to know somebody like me might see your name on a DNA test, but I'm not actually sifting through your DNA.
Right.
I'm looking at maybe a tree you had or you have a name and I Google it and that unlocks everything for me. So when I do a lot of these cases, I think another question is I don't speak to most of these reality stars. Like I just do it on my own and I
Right.
find their stuff and they're shocked what I find because I didn't talk to them. They might talk
Right.
to me after and fill in holes. Like I did something on Heather Gay and she had some aunt who reached out to me after and she's like, we're descended from a Mayflower ancestor. I said, okay. Yeah, a lot of the family members of reality stars reach out to me, which is like a really interesting phenomenon. Like people
Yeah.
not in the show, but they see it too. It's really cool. So yeah, it's a lot of Google guys. Like if you're a sleuth already,
We all are.
start searching. That's how I do it. And something else I really want to get across is Google is not always right.
Of course.
There are many times that I think it was Crystal from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Like her birthday is wrong if you Google it. And she's
Oh,
like,
okay.
thanks guys for the birthday wishes, but it's not my birthday. So
Interesting.
sometimes the internet picks up one thing, one date, like Sandoval. Sandoval never said his birthday was XYZ. I think something must have published the wrong date at one point, and then the whole internet just kind of took it, and he didn't say it was wrong.
Right.
It's happened with a few other stars as well. Their ages aren't exactly what they seem. So you
Right.
just I think that's really what I want to get across that yes, Google is an amazing tool, but you have to kind of fact check and
Right.
verify things
Well,
with
on
other
that
people.
note, I'm sort of
Yeah.
curious how foolproof this is, right? So we're going to get into the secret lives of Mormon wives and all the amazing
Yeah.
research you did, but something we all know, and we all know this came from you, and anyone who doesn't know it came from you now knows that Zach Affleck from the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives,
I
who's
know it's a
married to
tongue
Jennifer
twister.
Affleck, is not related to Ben Affleck. We saw
Right.
on the show that they said that they were second cousins, and you've done the research to show that that's not true. Now, the family, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like the family has come out to
The
deny that
family
yet.
has said
Said anything,
nothing.
nothing.
So basically, first of all, they've
But
said
could you be
they're
wrong is my
related.
question. Like
Hmm?
how like could you be wrong is my question. Like
It's
how
a good
accurate
question.
is
And
it?
I'm always open to being wrong, right? Like, so if somebody finds something different, correct me, but this isn't wrong. So basically, the first clue is every time they were asked the question how they're related, they gave multiple answers.
Oh, they did. Okay.
So the first, I think the original People article, and People kind of started this, said they were first cousins once removed.
Oh,
Yeah. So like, so Zach's dad, Dave, was first cousin of Ben. Then it turned into second cousins and second cousins once removed. And then it turned into distant cousins. So that's like a red flag right there.
hmm.
That something's amiss. So as for the trees, there's a lot on Ben Affleck out there already. He was supposed to be on Finding Your Roots and he wasn't. So, I think a lot of people did some digging into it. And so what I'm using when I find it is, his parents' names are out there, but I found obituaries that name
Mm.
the, family members. So I know who his grandfather is, who his great grandfather is. And a lot of it's already documented, and it's okay to look at stuff that's already out there. You just need to verify it.
Right.
As for Zach, we know his father's name. The father was on the show. And, the LDS Church, one of something that's very important to the religion is genealogy. So that's why, Family Search exists. They have a big conference called Roots Tech, which I'll be attending in March in Salt Lake City. I'm so excited.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so there's a lot already out there. So once I kind of figured out, and we know who the grandfather is as well. So it was pretty easy to kind of trace because once you get to his great grandfather Affleck, there's actually trees that are published online that go way back, and there's no cross because Afflecks are hanging out on the East Coast in, New England, they're in New York, and the Afflecks of Salt Lake City are hanging out in Utah for the most part. So
Yeah.
there's no crossover. And also it's kind of impossible because based on what I'm seeing in the census records, Ben Affleck's grandfather had no siblings. And if you have no siblings, you can't have second cousins.
This is fascinating. You're
Yeah,
right. Genealogy is fun.
it is fun.
This is so interesting. Okay. But I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Sheena's podcast. She had Demi on, and we're going to get into a little bit of
Hmm.
their conversation. But something that Demi mentioned was, oh, that's just so weird because Jen Affleck or maybe Zach Affleck, someone in that family
I think
said
she
that they
said
had
Zach's
met Ben
father.
Affleck. Zach's father had met Ben Affleck.
Right, but I think that's not true. Like, how would
Oh,
we know that, right? Like,
from Jen?
from Jen, but Jen said also they were second cousins.
Jen, I don't blame for that because she's married into the family, and I'm sure she was just told
Right,
something from the family. But
right.
I'm curious. There was a period of time where I was like, is this maybe like an old wives' tale? But no, Ben Affleck is still alive, so this isn't like this old
Right.
story
I
that was
mean,
passed down from generation.
I don't know, myths are a really interesting phenomenon. We don't know where they come from, but like, how do we know they actually met? Is there a picture?
Yeah,
Like,
no, you're right.
it's the same as her saying they're second cousins and met at a
Right,
family reunion. Like,
right,
it's not true. So,
right.
where did she get this information from? Um, I don't know. And what's funny is on my personal wall, like, of course, I'm friends with a lot of genealogists. So, like, a genealogist, when I posted all this happening, she's like, and she's from Salt Lake City and she's a very well-known genealogist. She's like, yeah, the Salt Lake City Afflecks are not related to that, Ben Affleck. I was like, yep, they're not.
I just would
No.
assume though that Jen wouldn't say that on the show if she knew it wasn't true. I really do assume that she was
You
just
would
told
hope
that.
so.
You would hope so.
I mean, that's the thing. How this all started is I had a follower of mine reach out to me and she asked me, are they related? And I was like, they have to be because who would make such a
Right,
bold statement
on
and it
TV.
not be true?
Yeah,
And I was like, oh. And at first I just posted a meme, like the whole like receipt, like you
yeah.
like I can't believe this. And then I think somebody showed me that it was on Reddit later, like a few days after I had done all this research. So I was like, okay, like I'll write a whole thing about what it was said about Myron, what is it, Myron Strong Affleck. It's like a long name, junior and senior, and all this information. But yeah, I mean, as far as I can see, they're not related. And, Affleck is a surname that kind of goes back to, I think, Scotland, but there's multiple places in Scotland it can come from. So, in my world, it's like, oh, take a patrilineal Y DNA test and let's see if your Afflecks converge at some point. But there's really no guarantee that they will. But
Yeah.
they're not first cousins, they're not second cousins, they're not any type of relative on that Affleck line that I can see, well into the early 1800s. So.
Pretty fascinating. And I
Yeah.
hope this comes up in the second season because I'm sure you heard they've been renewed for a second season. So,
They
well, imagine you
have.
get name dropped. That would be pretty cool if you got name dropped in the
I
season.
mean, it would be hilarious too because she's the only one who had a last name attached to her
Right,
name.
exactly.
So it's like, are they gonna like cross it out or something? Or like Jen Affleck not related to Ben Affleck?
Oh my
Like
God, they would do a
they
cross out
would.
and put not related. They would so do
Exactly.
that.
Let's
Producers
see.
are
I'm like, I'm
hilarious.
really excited about that.
So as I mentioned, Demi was on Sheena's podcast and they were
Mhm.
talking about this whole being related to Ben Affleck thing. And then there was another piece that Sheena brought up. So I'm just gonna play a little clip and then I'm gonna let you talk
Okay.
about it.
Awesome.
Alrighty, let's pull this up. So this is Sheena and Demi.
Oh, I know you don't watch Vanderpump Rules, but one interesting thing I just saw yesterday on Instagram. So my best friend on the show, Lala, is from Salt Lake. Okay. And everyone was going and doing the genealogy stuff with Zach to see if he was
Everyone.
related to Ben Affleck. And it turns out that he's actually Lala's fourth cousin once removed on Zach's mom's side.
No.
Yeah. They share third great grandparents. They descend from like LDS pioneer James Birmingham and Jane Constantia Shaw. And like there's pictures of them. And I sent it to Lala and both of our moms in a group chat. And Lala's like, I want no part of this.
No. So did they ever find out if he's actually related to them? Because that is like a burning question.
To Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
Everyone said no. They said there's no relation. But he is related to Lala Kent.
What?
Yeah.
That is bizarre.
I know.
Hey, I wonder if they're just genuinely confused then. Because
Right.
the dad has met him. And like, why would they have met if they weren't related?
I don't know.
Bizarre.
Wild.
Okay, we need to bring that up to her.
I know, right?
So that's so interesting. So tell us, that came from you, I assume. So tell us how you found that connection.
Yeah, so, with all of these shows, I have kind of trees for lots of reality stars hanging around in my Ancestry account. I make them private and unsearchable, so don't try and look for them, because I try to keep that privacy. But basically, I had, some work for Lala already done because I was interested in it. So, after all this happened, I said, let's see if we can find Zach related to one of the stars of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Like, let's see if he's also connected to Heather and Whitney. It would be really great. So I started doing it and I didn't find anything for them. And I kept going back in his tree because I think I was focusing on the Affleck line. And then I did his mother's line and I saw the last name Birmingham. And I said, oh, because if people aren't, familiar with it, she goes by Lala Kent, but she's Lauren Birmingham. So I said, let's see where this goes. And lo and behold, Zach's mother is fourth cousin, so they share third great grandparents with each other, and it's the pictures I have on my page. So I posted those. They're readily available through the LDS church because they were pioneers, and that's a big deal in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I saw that Birmingham and I went with it. And Lala, it was not part of the LDS church, but I believe her father grew up in the LDS church. So if you listen to the rest of that podcast, Sheena plays it off like it was many moons ago, but it definitely was more recent. But Lala did not grow up that way. And I think her father probably broke away from the church at some point. So yeah, that a little fun fact.
My favorite one that you've done so far is Stassi and Gypsy Rose.
Oh yeah.
So that's a crazy one. So Stassi from Vanderpump Rules, Gypsy Rose from everything right now.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I need to explain who Gypsy Rose is to the public, but yeah, tell us about that one. That was pretty wild. And talk to us about what stars came to you about it, and does Stassi recognize that this came from you? Walk us through that.
Okay, so that one was also hilarious, but it's similar to what I just described. I have all these trees kind of,
already,
on the back burner that I've worked on. And I am fascinated with Cajun and Acadians. And if people aren't familiar with that, Acadians are basically those that came, from Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. They were French ancestry. And they basically were exiled, and a lot of them, and they went down to Louisiana. And there's this whole, if you've ever, Evangeline, I think that's what the name of the poem is. But basically, Cajuns were originally Acadians. So I just find the whole history totally fascinating. And Stassi, we know she's from Louisiana, and one of her lines is that. And I had done stuff for Stassi before, and I found, a shared ancestor with her friend, Katie Maloney. And I had posted about it. And, Stassi totally acknowledged that. Katie totally acknowledged that. They love that because Katie is Hartford's godmother, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So they were totally into that. So, of course, when, Gypsy Rose came out to, into the public eye, I said, let me do her tree. And when I saw that she was totally, I believe she's 100% Cajun. But I don't recall. I said, oh, let's find where she connects to Stassi, because what you have to understand is in communities like this, they're all related to each other. It's just a matter of where it's
finding it.
Yeah. Right. So I just chose one line, and I found one surname that I remembered from Stassi's tree and Katie's. They're related multiple ways. I just picked one because it's called an endogamous population. It's called endogamy. It's basically you descend from a certain amount of people, and they all kind of keep it in the family for generations. And there's lots of different endogamous communities. I am 100% Ashkenazi Jewish, therefore I am part of one of those communities. So Acadians, Cajuns, similar. So I just kind of, pulled the thread and I found there's something like 10th cousins though. And I just thought it was
Wow.
funny when I
Yeah.
posted it, but it like went viral.
Yeah.
Like if every publication, every entertainment publication covered it. I have, the print version of Us Weekly. They covered it with my name in it. Like it was just crazy. And what happened there was part of the reason they covered it is Stassi commented
Mhm.
on that. And I pinned it and, she was really into it. And, if you listen to the rest of Sheena's podcast, she talks about that, like, this is giving Stassi and Gypsy Rose. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because she doesn't name me, I'm like
Right.
thinking, Sheena, I also gave you Stassi
I
and
give you
Gypsy Rose.
Stassi
It
and
was
Gypsy
me. Like,
Rose.
all the things you're talking about are about me. But it tells me
Right.
Sheena must be really into genealogy. So, Sheena, if you're listening to this, happy to work through that with you because I have poked around your mother's side a little bit. So
Oh,
we
I
can
bet
talk.
she would love that because her
Yeah.
father isn't like, did you know that her dad is not her real dad?
Yes. Yes. So I do
So,
not know the identity of her biological father.
but we know his
Um,
last name.
we do not know the identity of her biological father.
Oh, is that her mother's name, Jenkins?
Her maiden
Oh, I
name.
didn't know that. Okay. I thought it was her father's name.
Yes. Yes. So see, this is what genealogists know, right?
Yeah.
So, but I help people. I've, talked to a lot of reality stars with this, and many of them really are moved by this work. So, it's really fulfilling in that
Hmm.
way. So,
Yeah, there's no malintent to it,
no.
while some of us in the Bravo
I mean,
community as content creators.
Hilaria Baldwin is another story. There was nothing there,
What did
but
you find there?
oh, that was
Oh,
kind
that
of
she's
my
just
first
Spanish.
thing that she doesn't have any Spanish anything that we can find.
I don't
So
think we
that
needed
was
to
the
do any
first kind
research
of
for
big
that.
viral thing that I did.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's fun. Like people can get into this. It's as easy as starting with an ancestry account. I want to get across that I don't just do that. And a lot of times it's easy to take what people have for hints and just adopt them. But I kind of, triangulate with lots of other sources.
Hmm.
I've talked to, when I do yearbooks, I've called libraries. Um, I've found newspapers. I've done some other things. Typically, because this is just for fun, it's the low hanging fruit. I'm not investing a ton of time and energy into it compared to my my job that pays the bills.
Right.
And but it's work and I enjoy doing the work and I think people really appreciate the work. And if nothing else, I hope people are realizing that, hey, I can do this too.
Yeah.
So
It's been really cool following you and everything that you're doing. But I
yeah, I'm
want to,
happy. I take requests too. I mean, a lot of things are finer because people ask me questions and
yeah,
then I, check.
I love that. My sister
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, you have to have her do our family because we have such a small family." And I'm like, "Yeah, offline, I don't really want to get into like my family's names and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing on air." But yeah, it's definitely a really cool thing. People love to hear about their history, especially when it's things you don't know. I don't want to get into it really at all, but just a smidge. I don't know if you're watching Love is Blind this
I'm
season.
not, but people have told me
Told you
to
about this
do
guy?
things.
Did they
Yes.
tell you about this guy with the ancestry.com and how he found
Yes.
out he's like three-quarters black or something like that? So that was a
Yeah.
pretty funny one. But let's get into some of our favorite Housewives shows because you
Okay.
told me you've been watching this week. So we've
I
got
do.
Salt Lake City and we've got OC. Are you
Yes.
enjoying the season so far for both shows?
Absolutely. Like I was concerned about Salt Lake City because, Monica is a great villain.
Hmm.
But
We love a
honestly,
villain.
Monica who? Like that's
Right.
how I feel right now with
Yeah.
the season. So I've been very happy with it. I'm very happy that Lisa and Meredith are friends again. Like I feel like nature has healed itself.
Killed.
Uh,
Well,
and
yeah,
yeah,
that being said, I mean, we start off this episode with Angie and Whitney trying to get in the middle of that. So they go up to Meredith and they try to create a divide. They start bringing up things from years ago to
right.
create a situation between Meredith and Lisa. But like you said, they have this long-standing history, they have this friendship. And I was really surprised that they tried to do this. It was a bold move.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's what I love about Salt Lake City is I kind of love all of them, right? I like there's one or two I could do without, but like most of all, like I love all of them and it's just I want them to make it work, but I
Yeah.
also want them to give me good TV. So, I don't know. I think, I know Angie had some interview where she's like center snowflake or so, and she was like crying over it because it meant so much. So, I my gut is she's trying to bring the drama to get that center snowflake place. But I
Energy.
think she's wonderful TV. I think she's a great addition. And, my gut is they'll all kind of smooth it over at
Yeah.
some point.
Well, what's funny about them, and we definitely saw it in this episode, is how they can really, like what we normally call puke and rally, they can just fight and rally. They can literally
Yeah,
get in these huge fights and then go do karaoke at like the drag show and have the best time ever. And Bronwyn's sort of like, what is happening
I
around here?
know.
Like, what is this? Get used to it, Bronwyn, because this is how it works basically.
Yeah,
And I think that's how they do what you want, right? They fight and then they
yeah, I
have
don't know how
fun.
I feel about Bronwyn yet. I'm
No?
like I'm still wait, I don't know yet. We'll see. Like,
I
I
think
think
she's a
she's
good
doing a lot right now.
doing a lot, but I think she's a good fit. Like I feel like she's always been there. She dresses weird. That fits too. Like
I
if
mean, the
all of a
hot
sudden
dog costume or couture, right?
costume or couture. I mean, costume. But
Costume. Yeah.
it was pretty wild though when, and I get why she did it, but when Brittany sort of came at her and was like,
Oh yeah.
worry about your relationship. Are you attracted to your husband? Were you with him for the money?
Yeah,
And those are
I was uncomfortable.
yeah, I was
That was-
uncomfortable, but not just that, but I was sort of, it was interesting when she was explaining why they don't have a prenup. So Bronwyn and Todd, she's saying, we don't have a prenup because he knows who I am, he knows my character, he has so much money, he's so smart. Therefore, we don't have a prenup. And I think she's confused as to what a prenup is for. It is for when, because we all think we know who someone is, but in my
Exactly.
opinion, you don't know who someone is until you go through something
So
like
let's do the math here because she was
that. I
been
hate
married
math.
about a decade,
Yeah, I
right?
think so.
So she was married in her 20s to this much older gentleman.
Mhm.
I think she's 38.
Right,
Or like
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
which so yeah, I mean we all think a certain way, right? When we're in our 20s, and hopefully she'll never have to learn the hard way.
No, but how come he didn't? Like, why isn't he thinking the hard way? Like,
I
it's
don't
just so
know. Maybe there's
stupid.
something we don't know, right? Like uh,
I just don't understand the concept because to me, a prenup is like not necessarily because you have money. It's like if you ever were like it's something Sheena always said when people said, "Why didn't you get a prenup?" She goes, "Well, I had nothing to lose at the time." Is
right.
it not about the time? Like, in my opinion, isn't it about if I'm ever to acquire this amount of wealth, or I get an inheritance, or something happens, or I do all this work and you do
Mhm.
nothing, I don't want you to have it. That's what I thought a prenup
Yeah,
was
I mean,
for.
I don't know enough about her husband and his finances and, how
The
all that is, and
budget's
her family's finances for that
yeah.
matter. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I haven't really dug into it. I know she's kind of been all over the world. I think even
Hmm.
before, she was married. So maybe, I don't know. It's hard
Yeah.
to know. I mean, I think, we'll have to see things play out because she's so new. But yeah, I mean, well, it's the same. Didn't Teresa and Louis, they didn't do a prenup again, didn't they? Like, it's just like that one I
Also
don't get.
stupid. I don't
I mean,
know.
that's the one that's like, man.
Or
Like,
Britney Spears, I think, also didn't get a prenup, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
mean, I
Guys,
don't get
come
it. I
on.
don't
I don't know.
understand these people, but that's why they're on reality television because they don't make sense, right? Like,
That is an excellent point.
yeah, exactly.
And what else did we have? So we have some more Brittany and Jared drama. So
Hmm.
in this episode, they break up again. Now, I don't know if you've been keeping track of all the social media fodder, but I had the Bravo Babe on last week, and we were
Hmm.
going on about like these DMs that Jared had sent to Bravo and Cocktails saying like
Yeah.
they've never broken up, they're always in a relationship. She told me like I'm the only reason she's on camera, all of this stuff. So, but then again, he's been super contradictory as well. So, in your
Hmm.
opinion, do you feel like she's doing this for the storyline? Do you feel like she really loves this Jared guy, or do you feel like this is all for the show?
I think yes and yes. Like,
Okay.
I mean, who said it? Like, he's an Osmond, right? Like,
Which
there's a
means
little bit of,
nothing to me, but like to them, it
right, but
seems
it
to be a
means a
big deal.
lot to a lot of people, like Osmond Way or whatever it is.
Osmond
And I
Lane.
actually wanted to make sure. I was like, is he actually related to the Osmonds?
That
Because
was my
we
first thought. My first thought.
And I was like, and I kind of like, yep, yeah, this tracks, Uncle Donnie.
Because he's a nephew. Yeah, it's a little
Yeah,
harder
yeah,
to
Aunt
fake.
Marie. So yeah, no, I totally checked that. He looks like them too. I mean, come on, he
I didn't
looks.
even look at him, to be
Oh
honest
yeah,
with
yeah.
you.
Look, so I think she probably leveraged her relationship to get on the show. Like it doesn't.
Hmm.
And again, Osmonds are considered like I know you're not familiar, but like I believe in Utah, and like that's a big deal.
Okay.
That's my understanding. So but I also believe that he sucks. Like,
Yeah.
and he's gaslighting to the
Hmm.
extreme. And I don't, it just doesn't add up to me. I think it's really weird that he shared that with Bravo and Cocktails. And it just seems like he's trying to make something of himself also with the clout chasing. It's like, like
Yeah.
It's giving very much John Jansen vibes of I don't want to be in the spotlight and like look where we are, right?
Exactly. And I don't really have an understanding as to why he wanted to do this best friend thing, but not say that they're in a relationship. Like, why would you have to go on camera as
I mean,
best
he's saying that like
friends?
she wanted, I don't know. It doesn't make any
It's
sense and it's contradictory. I hope that they're living their separate lives. It seems like they're not together anymore, I
I'm not
think.
sure. But then he also had said something like, "Oh, I had never left her. We were always in a relationship." Okay, well, what about the brow girl, right? Like, and she's saying we
Right.
were on a break. I don't know. It's giving very juvenile high school relationship. If it even
Exactly.
is a relationship, I'm not even sure.
Exactly. I mean, I think maybe they're kind of using each other at the same time, like a little bit of
Possibly.
clout chasing. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
see. Again, for me, I like to see how this stuff plays out, but I think it's a red flag that he's reaching out to an account that, is
Yeah.
very, a popular account and,
Oh, there was
wants
more than
this to
that.
be
He went
shared
on
with
this thing
everybody.
called like Twitter Spaces. I never heard of this before. This was
Oh
also
yeah, it's a
last week.
thing.
Yeah, with Mary Cosby's fan page or something, where Mary Cosby's fan page had like asked him a bunch of questions and he went through and he answered each of these questions. So yes, 100% clout chaser.
John
It's
Jansen vibes, I'm telling you.
it's 100% John Jansen vibes. But before we move into John Jansen vibes,
Yes.
I still want to touch on. So Whitney's upset that this whole thing about her business is coming up. But I sort of
Mhm.
feel like when Meredith initially brought it up, she definitely brought it up for, malintent, for bad reasons, hoping Heather would then engage Whitney about it. She
Mhm.
didn't. But then she finally did. And when she did, the way Heather made it seem was like everyone's talking about this.
Yeah.
Everyone's, going on about your illegitimate business. So of
Mhm.
course Whitney sort of came into it defensive, but like do you feel like Meredith's intent was to do something bad about this? Do you think she actually would have helped her in this situation because of all of
She
her
would have
design
helped her.
experience? You
I
think
do think
so?
she would have helped her, but I do think she wanted to, I think it was a dig, right? But I don't think
Yeah,
she expected Heather to handle it in the way that Heather handled it. But again,
right.
you can't control for
Can't.
these things. But, it was on camera. Like she wanted something to happen and
Yeah.
make a dig. Because, I think, but I also think she was responding to, other things Whitney had been doing, or at least she perceived Whitney had been doing. And that
Hmm.
was her way to, and again, a lot of it, it's like the fourth wall. They are talking about things that are happening in the blogs and on Reddit and all this stuff.
I
So
know.
all Meredith, I believe, was doing was bringing up some gossip that she saw,
Yeah.
right? It's like, and repeating it for camera. So everyone can hear about it. And, Heather did, they made TV with it. And I think Meredith might have been able to predict that it wouldn't go down well, but I don't think she might have predicted like that would happen in front of everybody and kind of all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Right.
with these housewives, they retaliate. That's just how it goes.
Well, the last thing I want to touch on from Salt
Mhm.
Lake City is that fight we get at the end with Lisa and Angie kicking her chair, but it's just more so the fact that Lisa, when they're having this argument about whether Lisa and Angie are good enough friends to each other, Lisa's like, "Well, you're always trying to get off the phone with me to talk to Electra. That's the excuse you use. Oh, Electra." And everybody just sort of went dead silent because you
Mhm.
you never mention the name of a child, right? And I don't know, this really resonated for me because I am a person who hates the phone, and I truly believe this has become like an increasing problem over my life where like when I
Mhm.
was younger, I would get trapped in these phone calls with friends for 3 to 4 hours. I would never have time to do my homework. I didn't understand how they had time to do their homework. It came to a point where I'm like, Mom, don't answer the phone. Don't answer
Yeah.
the phone. Or I'd end up in these weird calls where like the other person isn't saying anything. And I'm like, it would be very awkward. And now it's sort of come to the point where I am terrified of the phone because I don't want to get trapped in these horrifying situations that I can't get out of. So anyone who's ever had a phone call with me, I'll tell you right now, every time I'm telling you I'm getting off, whether it's walking my dog, taking a
Mhm.
shower, oh my God, a fire. I'm lying to you. I'm lying to you. I am
Yeah.
thinking of every excuse in the book to get off the phone. That being said, we know how obsessed Angie is with Electra and trying to create, I think in Angie's mind, she's taking it as like, oh my God, you're taking this dig at my parenting or this dig at like, that I would make an excuse, that my daughter would ever be an excuse, sort of thing,
Yeah.
right? You see in her face that it's wildfire in her
Mhm.
eyes, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I mean, and it makes me sad because I feel like they're gonna mend
I
fences
hope so.
eventually. I really feel that way because they do have a history, and I think, again, Lisa is responding because Lisa saw her as a good friend. And I think she said it as a way to say, like, you don't really want to talk to me. You're using your daughter as an excuse. I don't think it was anything against the daughter.
No.
But I also feel like if it were flipped and Angie had said something about one of Lisa's kids, like Lisa probably would have lost it
Yeah.
also, using your kids. So it was just in the heat of the moment. Like, I don't think there was any malintent there on
No.
Lisa's part, but like, I
But you
can
know how
understand.
Angie took it, just the look
Right,
in her eyes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you can tell they have this history and it's like a friendship kind of blowing up
Hmm.
in front of our eyes, which we've seen before with Lisa and Meredith, which is why I have hope that they can kind of, mend fences there. But I don't know, Angie's like BFF with Mary now, which is like the weirdest friendship ever. Did not see that coming. So
What
who
do you
knows?
think about Mary in general? Like, how do you think producers got her to this point of like participation? Like, how did they get here?
Honestly, I'm not a Mary fan. I think that producers coddle her and she gets away with things that nobody else, like, she doesn't have to go,
Right. On the plane and yeah.
on the plane. She doesn't have to do any of this stuff. And, there's been a lot of, probably more than any of the other castmates, a lot of kind of chatter about her and her family that we know about. I know lots of accounts have gotten messages from, people of the part of her church and things
Mhm.
like that. So I think they pander to her in a way that's weird. And
Mhm.
she said some really like not great things that are really offensive. I think she's really good TV, and I think she's kind of definitely brought her game this season. So I definitely appreciate that from a reality TV perspective. But I don't get her.
I think it's a difficult dance between good reality TV and good person because
Yeah,
they almost never can be both. So I
right.
feel like producers slash the fandom sort of have to choose, right? Like it's like we hate you as a person, but I kind of love watching you on
I mean, I
TV.
think we feel that way about so many
So many,
people,
yeah.
so many. I mean, they literally have somebody in their cast in prison right now, right? Like,
She's
right?
not a
Like,
current cast member.
she's not a current cast member, but like, she's still talked about in interviews, right? So,
And I don't know if you heard she's getting out of jail early, and people are like,
yeah,
so
I
she'll be
heard,
back
yeah.
to the season in 2027. It's like,
I
no, no, no,
mean,
no, no,
she'll
no,
have her
no.
comeback like Teresa, right? Like,
No, I don't think we're doing. I hope we're not doing
I mean,
that.
I hope we're not, because again, it's rewarding really
Yeah,
bad behavior.
exactly.
But you can't. So it's hard because good reality TV versus, how they are as a person. But my only wish is that I feel like they deserve more of an even playing field. Like I feel like they just really give in to her stuff a
Yeah,
lot. And
I
she skipped
agree.
a reunion before.
Yeah,
Like you
you're right.
don't do that. That's like cardinal housewives sin
Yeah,
is you.
she shouldn't get special treatment. There's no reason.
Exactly.
Mm.
So, but I will say I do appreciate her, like her one-liners are gold. Like you can't say anything else
Yeah,
about that.
for
But yeah.
sure. All right, well, let's move into the Real Housewives of
Okay.
OC.
Yes.
We are in London. We're having a great time with our bucket hats. And well, no, actually, first we started off with the mammogram, and I think that's before
Yes,
they
that was
actually traveled
before.
to
Yeah.
London. So that was a really important scene.
Mhm.
I'm turning 41 in four, my God, I'm like not even paying attention. 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. So I
Okay.
was just, it actually gave me a moment. It's like, oh my God, wait, now do I need to get a mammogram because I'm
Yeah,
over
you do.
40? And I didn't even think about it. So can you believe that the Real Housewives and Heather Dubrow convinced me to get a mammogram?
I mean, there you go. That's all you need. Reality TV saves lives, guys. You've heard it
Thank
here.
you. Yes,
You've heard it here.
exactly. But I did feel bad for Heather when nobody asked her.
Oh my, I did. Like a lot of times I don't agree with Heather on things, but she was totally in the right there. Like she brought all these ladies to, really, I mean, it could have been really bad for Jen, for example, with like the
Yeah.
lump that she had. I
Mhm.
mean, really dangerous. If you have a lump, everyone, please go get it checked. Do not put it off. But I felt for Heather because especially if they know anything about Heather's history with her, family members and things, like you ask.
Right.
And I really felt for her there, and that was really
Yeah.
genuine, and she was in the right.
So she was saying in the episode that her test was fine, but the radiologist came in to explain that her chances of getting breast cancer are 39%, and someone
Mhm.
her age and her level of like dense breasts would be
Yeah,
normally at the level of a 12%. So it is very high. I
yeah,
do excuse, obviously, Shannon and Jen. They thought they heard yay, so they thought that Heather was fine, but there's something about the relationship between Heather and Gina that we're starting to see become strained because when Heather expresses that she's upset about this, Gina in her confessional is like, well, why didn't she bring this up earlier? Okay, if I'm upset about a medical thing because you guys didn't ask me, I should never have to bring it up. And she didn't really. Tamara was like, "How was yours?" And that's what prompted her to bring it up in London at that dinner. But she shouldn't have to call her friend and say, "Hey, I'm upset you didn't ask me about my health. I'm upset you don't care about me." Like, you shouldn't have to say that to your
No,
friend.
Gina was 100% wrong, and
Yeah.
she's reaching because she's met. I mean, that friendship honestly has never made sense to me. The two of
I
them.
always say this. So I only came in with OC starting at season 17, so I don't have a
Okay.
ton of the history, but I thought that they were close. But I
They're
from what
both
I've
from New
seen,
York, like that. It's like
that's it.
yeah. I mean, they're different. They're very different. You know, Gina and Emily make sense to me.
Hmm.
It just, because I always think there's kind of a power struggle there between them at the end of the day. Like Heather's worth a lot of money.
Hmm.
Gina's not. And I think Gina, and I don't know Heather, but I think she brings that into the relationship and always just feels inferior. She's also younger.
Hmm.
She's, not a, Heather's been around the block more with as a housewife. Like it feels very much like Gina doesn't want to mess up. And I think Gina's starting to come into her own in a way now and saying, like, I don't like this
Yeah,
dynamic
standing
anymore.
up
Like,
for
I definitely
herself.
feel that way, but I don't think Heather was ever thinking that way. So it's just catching her off guard. So it's just that friendship never really made sense to me
Okay.
in that
And then we
way.
have this really weird thing that happened where Heather makes something about herself. Very bizarre for Heather. And, it was the situation where you remember from a few episodes ago where Shannon goes into Heather's room and is like, "Look, I feel like John maybe heard the crash. I'm not sure. Here's the picture I sent him of my bloody face. He didn't
Yeah.
respond." And Heather's like, "You think he didn't hear the or you think he heard the crash?" And she's like, "I'm not sure." Never said, "Yes, I'm sure." Never said, "This is what I think happened 100%." So then Heather gets this idea with Tamara because, Tamara likes to start shit up, that Shannon was using her because on Jeff Lewis's show, she apparently said something like, "Oh, yeah, I haven't really thought about the idea of whether he heard the crash." So Heather starts getting all in her head and upset, thinking that like Shannon was using her to try to get this on camera and to get this idea out there that John ignored the crash. So then on Watch What Happens Live, and I want to go through all of this because we have a bunch of evidence. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we go into everything. So then when Heather and Tamara confront Shannon with this, she's like, "I don't know what I said on Jeff Lewis's show. I'm not a liar. Why are you guys calling me a liar about this?" Because again, she's never actually said John 100% heard the crash. Then on Watch What Happens Live, her explanation is that she used the wrong verbiage. So she's saying that when she was on Jeff Lewis, she was saying to him, "Oh, I hadn't thought about it. Like I hadn't thought about it at the time." And now Jeff Lewis has come out explaining his side of the story. So I'm actually going to play this clip.
Yeah, I want to hear this. I
It's
haven't heard this.
long, but I want to play it because he tells what his version of the story was.
Yeah.
I'll explain. I'm going to explain. Okay. So what happened is that it never occurred to Shannon. It really didn't. That I had been to John Jansen's many times, and as I got all the information from the accident, I had said, "Wait a minute, you backed up. Literally, you hit that house in seconds." She's like seconds, and I said, "Okay." And I had said to Shane, and then I mentioned it to Shannon. And I don't regret doing it because I'm her friend. But I said, the front door is all the way. Have you guys been there?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like a waterfront house,
Yes.
and then the front door is all
Like
the way to the
Katie
front.
and
So you have to
Jenner
walk down
there.
that long sidewalk.
Correct.
So I said, I just don't understand, Shannon. Like, how did he not hear that accident? Because that would have been a huge crash. That's all I said. I don't know for certain. I don't know anything. I'm like, I just being in that house, walking to the front door, knowing that the accident happened within seconds. I just think you'd have to be practically running to that front door and get inside before I think you could probably hear the crash. I don't know, maybe he didn't, or maybe he was intoxicated or whatever. So what happened was, um, I was going to come on. I was going to come on the show
I heard.
and talk about it. But the problem is that was when the lawsuit had kicked up. And so I said, I'm not doing this because he's litigious. And I said, even though I don't know anything, I don't know for certain, I'm not making any claims. I'm just saying, I just question it because I had been to that home. So Bravo wouldn't indemnify me. So I said, I can't risk this. Like I can't risk getting sued. So that's what happened. And then when Shannon was on the show, I had brought it up, and she's like backpedaled, and she had said, "I don't. It never occurred to me." But I will tell you what happened. We were both scared from him. So the reason she backed up is because she's like, I don't want to talk about this because he's already suing me once. I don't want to make any claims at all that
Make anything worse.
he could have potentially heard because who knows, of defamation, whatever. She was scared. And for the same reason, I didn't go on the show. So what's unfortunate now, because I caught wind of what was happening, where now these girls are confronting her and be like, you lied on Jeff Lewis. She did lie. She did lie on Jeff Lewis. She did. But she did it because she was afraid, because she is already dealing with him with legal issues. That's what happened.
What do you think of that?
I believe Jeff Lewis. Like, I think if he's saying that, and it's all very plausible to me. I mean, when somebody's litigious, it's scary. And I think more than litigious, like she doesn't want, he knows things about her, right? So, I think she, I think it's true. I think it got played out that way, and the girls all confronted her because she lied on the show or lied by omission or whatever you want to
Yeah.
say. But no, I believe everything Jeff Lewis says, because you can tell when Jeff Lewis isn't telling the truth. He's not very good at lying. He's a very honest person.
But
I think.
I also kind of love how he's in all these shows right now.
I
Like, such a
know.
topic of conversation.
I know, I love it, but I think that's the case. But I also think that the money, again, when you're dating someone, you don't think of something as a loan, but I think it was kind of a loan. Like, I do kind of
But
believe that as well.
it probably was, but legally and technically speaking, even if he sent her a promissory note, she didn't sign the promissory note. So even if later on he's
Right,
like, oh,
exactly.
I wanted this to be a loan, this is a misunderstanding, she didn't sign it. And from what she said, she kind of blew up on him and he's like, okay, never mind. So therefore, it's not a loan. And for him to say on when was it, the confessional, that the statute of
Yeah,
limitations was coming up, statutes of limitations are usually a year. So this has been a long time that you have been waiting to ask her for this money. And Emily has brought this up many times. She's brought it up on Watch What Happens Live. You waited
right.
to do this until it was on camera. Yeah, you're right. The
Oh,
statute of
absolutely. Like,
limitations
it's
is coming up. You
totally
had all this time.
exactly. I think he totally planned this, and
Yeah.
like Alexis, like, ugh, like
Ugh.
go away. I mean,
Oh,
that text message, are you gonna read the text
no,
message at the end that Shannon found? I mean, like, come
but
on.
that's amazing. Yes, let's read that. But that wasn't what I was going to say. But yes, let me read the text message that Shannon found later on. So this was so amazing. So at the end of the episode, Shannon discloses to Gina that when she went to text Alexis to be like, you can't come on this trip, she found this text history that she had with Alexis in
Right. I mean, and
2018.
haven't we all done that, right? Like, we like text somebody a million years later, you
Yeah.
deleted their number for the phone, you find all the stuff. I mean, I certainly happened to me.
Well,
So
it's so
totally
funny because so
believable.
many people were like, who has text from that long? I am a hoarder as hell.
Oh,
I don't delete
absolutely. I don't
any
delete
text.
anything.
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, totally believable.
so here's the text. Shannon. So this is June 27th, 2018 at
Mhm.
1:57 p.m. Shannon. Everything in you and Tamara have said in the media since the divorce are lies. We have engaged an attorney and will be suing you and Tamara for slander and defamation.
Everyone,
We. Your insensitive and false allegations come at a very difficult time for our family. Jim and I left you alone and never said a negative thing in the media regarding you two. Just know you will be hearing from our attorney tomorrow, Alexis, our attorney. And
we.
then Gina's face just at the end, like
I know.
jaw
It
dropped,
was all of us.
smiling. So funny. And
That's a
I love
receipt.
that.
That's a receipt.
That's a receipt.
Yep.
That's proof.
And then
That's
don't
a
forget, then
timeline.
Shannon sent that to Tamara, and she's like, "Oh, I totally forgot about that because Alexis didn't have my phone number, so she only sent it to you."
But it's so annoying that in this episode, you get a confessional from Tamara being like, oh, even Shannon told me that she borrowed the money. So I understand where John is coming from. No, you don't. A few episodes prior, you felt for Shannon on the lawsuit. You have been through a lawsuit. You know how stressful it is. Ryan almost just sued you. So don't just sit there and be like, yeah, John should totally sue her, because you know what that does to someone's finances, to their family, to their mental health. And I'm really shocked that she said
No,
that.
Tamara goes for the jugular. Like, I
Just,
mean,
ugh.
again, another one,
Yeah.
great television, but you can see that she's getting herself into trouble in a lot of spaces. And I mean, a lot of former castmates have been saying a lot of things about her. I think Jen Armstrong kind of did something the other day, if you
Oh,
remember
what'd
her.
she say?
Oh, you can check it out. She commented on her recent plastic surgery. She like did a
Okay.
whole rundown. Yeah, I just saw that. I was like, oh wow, you do not like Tamara. Um,
Ay,
yeah,
Tamara.
so there's a lot out there. Yeah, and also Tamara laughing with Shannon when she left, like, oh, it's prison bars. Like, okay, maybe you're laughing because you're super immature and that's what it looks like, but it felt really icky. Like, that's the
Tamara
word.
is immature. Even earlier on when she's packing with Eddie, she's saying that Ryan should go put in a tampon. Like, we don't make jokes like that anymore.
No,
That
no.
like
I've
that
never
men are
made a joke
weak
like
when they're
that.
women, right? Like that is
But
what
but like I don't know anyone who makes jokes like that. Like, it's But again, that's why they're on reality television, and I'm sitting behind a desk just researching all these people. So
Exactly.
we we,
Well,
we lead very different lives.
exactly. Well, speaking of their different lives, there was a big reality TV party. It was a big Us Weekly party over this past weekend. It was Us
Yeah.
Weekly and Pluto. Lots of people were there, John Jansen included. So I'm actually just going to play this clip on his
Oh man,
opinion
yeah.
of the season, just because, I thought it would be great to get like John's confessional, just because he really, really hates being in front of the camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why is this playing?
It has been overwhelming. And what's so difficult is that it's like we're in a vortex where all of the hate is based off of things that aren't true. And me having no voice has been very difficult. And then Lex feels the responsibility to try and help me. And then she gets criticized for that. So it's a tough no-win deal.
We're in a no-win situation, but it's okay because now it's done. Yeah. And we can close that door and open the door to the wedding.
Are there any regrets? Anything about that was shared? Any regrets?
I don't have a regret.
Well, I think Lex regrets sharing anything about the videos.
Oh, okay.
And I'll restate that I'm the one that has the videos, and nothing has ever come out of my mouth that I was ever going to show them to anybody. That was never a possibility.
The funny thing is, I thought I did that off camera. Like you filmed for 12 hours, and I was with my girlfriends, my good girlfriends. You think you do something, and then it's like, oh shoot, the cameras were rolling. I didn't even remember that. I didn't. I told the friends about them off camera. I thought, and so it is what it is. But I don't really have any regrets because the truth is the truth, and we have truth on our side.
So
Ooh.
I don't know if you remember, but first she said it was because she was tired, and now she's saying that she thought it was off camera.
I mean,
there was a camera next to you. What are you talking about?
He's coaching her. I don't know if you saw their Watch What Happens Live appearance. He was like totally coaching her from the seat for what she should say. It's very weird. I mean, he's apologizing on her behalf, kind of throwing her under the bus to protect himself. I mean, there's a lot of red flags with that relationship. And I could tell she wanted to make another Shannon Bedore joke in there where like, you're like, open this door, close I was like, you thought better of that, I think.
It's never landed.
There's the door, Shannon Bedore. No, their relationship, I mean, it's to me, I'm not a therapist or anything, but if your relationship begins in a space where you're so focused on the ex, that's a really, really difficult dynamic to move away from. And they're still talking about her because they're on the show.
Right.
And it's just like, that's, kind of like Vicky's, would say like, get back to me in 5 years or whatever.
Right.
Kind of thing. It doesn't sound great. And maybe she likes that. I mean, I can't speak to what they say behind closed doors, but the way he kind of tells her or tells people what she's thinking is very much icky. Again, that's my favorite adjective. It's icky to me that he's doing that. And and I would be very mad at my husband if he did that after. He'd hear a lot from me if he did that to me on camera.
I wonder if they ever got in a fight about her talking about the videos. It sounds like maybe they did.
I'm
like
sure
she was
they
not supposed to do that.
No, but she knew what she was doing. But also, like, I
totally believe she did that on purpose.
She totally did on purpose, but I also don't think that she thinks things through. She's very impulsive and she wants to be on television. She wants to be on the show and she'll do whatever it takes, even if it's
career.
Potentially slanderous and, could, screw up her marriage or her soon to be marriage or what. I mean, her former marriage too. I mean, like reality TV has not gone her way. So maybe it's not for her.
Do you think they'll get married, like for real and really last?
I mean, I want to know if there's a prenup. That's what I want to know. Back to prenups. Like
to prenups.
That's what I want to know. Sure, why not? But do I think it's going to last and they'll live happily ever after? No.
They're very similar, so maybe they're both.
Maybe, but again, if the relationship is built around an ex, that's just really toxic stuff.
100%.
They haven't been together that long.
9 months.
Exactly. Like, they're still in the honeymoon phase and look at this honeymoon phase. It's awful. This is a terrible way to start a relationship. And now you're going to get married.
The
And I
best way
mean,
to start a relationship is to get engaged and then have to turn off your comments because there's so much hate.
I know. And for me, like, if they really want this to work, Alexis really needs to stay away from the show. Like, these shows are not
I
for
agree.
everybody. If you really care about the relationship, then take it off the show and, God bless you. Have a great life. But I think we all see that there's so much more to it than that for both of them.
Right.
He's out slayed Smiley, right? So there you go.
100%. Dr. Adina Newman, thank you so
Yes.
much for joining me. Where can the
Thank you.
people find you if they want to follow you and see what you have going on?
Yeah, just I'm my family genie, like a genie in the bottle, haha. But it's because I try to find things for people. That's where it came from. So I'm on Instagram mostly, but you can find me anywhere. I don't do as much TikTok anymore. I'm on Facebook, but yeah, just shoot me a message if you ever have any questions. And if you have any tips or things you want me to find, always happy to oblige. So
Thank you, Adina, for coming.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hurrdat Media. If you want to listen to this show or any other episode, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Hurrdat Media's YouTube channel to watch my full-length video podcast episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at I Take Bravo Very Seriously and at The Bravo Investigator. You can follow me on TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. Head to buymeacoffee.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously to buy me a coffee. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously for 4 extra mini episodes a month, early episodes, ad-free, Q&A, and exclusive access to bonus content. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.